Hey guys, my name is Dulce Antude. I have been preparing for my final presentation. So today I will be showing you guys my presentation, the social work topic that I have chosen, I researched on. So I was able to identify a research question and a hypothesis in my presentation. I was able to develop the variable and statistical test I would use. I also experienced as to why I chose them. Explained as to why I chose them. I hope you guys enjoy. Why I chose this topic. I chose this topic because I have worked in early childhood for almost 7 years, and I have seen many families who have lived in situations with domestic violence with children. So my topic for the presentation is domestic violence in families with children. I started working in the early childhood field since I was in high school, and I knew I wanted to further on my education in early childhood. The years that I have worked with children, I have valued and gained comprehension as to how they learn and feel and see things. It is important that children have a safe home where they can feel secured by both mother and father. Domestic violence affects children physically and emotionally. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence can show many factors such as an aggressive behavior in the person or home, having to involve abuse to the children, spouse, partner, family, etc. It is a cycle that does go around, and if it's not stopped, it can continue to keep on going. The cycle starts with blaming yourself, then believing in the person and forgiving them. Finally, you trying to please the abuser. Domestic violence is when one person tries to control another. It is a cycle that repeats itself. Illinois Police, 2019. Domestic violence can severely affect the children in many ways, from emotionally to physically. It is important that as we see these situations like these in our field, we encounter them and advocate for these children or people. The cycle does not stop, and it will continue to keep on going, and in some cases, lead to further actions by the abuser. Social work topic. As I was researching a topic about this presentation, I decided to do research on how damaged families with ongoing domestic violence affect children. I chose this topic because I have a strong relationship for families. One of the verses from the Bible that caught my attention in regards to family was, "There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, and a heart that devises wicked plans. Feet that make haste to run evil, a false witness who breathes our lies, and one who sows discord among brothers." Proverbs 6:16-19. As per my social work topic, I have done some research on damage to families with ongoing domestic violence in children. I've chosen this topic because I work for a low-income school near where I live. This school has children who have families that are broken, violence, abuse, drugs, alcohol, you name it. These families are fronted with domestic violence not only to the adults but the children as well. We think to ourselves that we are only hurting our children, wives, husband, but in reality, you're also hurting the rest of the family in this violence as well. Family has always been important to me, as I was raised in a family that was always involved in our church. My parents raised us to hold a strong relationship with God in our faith. Research question. How does damaged families with ongoing domestic violence affect children? My hypothesis in regards to how does damaged families with ongoing domestic violence affect children would be that children are more prone to having long-term mental health effects. Some of the long-term effects can be kids emotionally insecure, parents' relationship may be affected, stressful environment, decreased cognitive performance, substance abuse, behavior, and academic problems. There's a research that suggests that a child as young as 6 months old can be negatively affected by harsh parental arguments. It is not just young kids who are affected by parents fighting. Other studies have shown young adults up to age 19 can be sensitive to conflicts in the parents' marriage. More in Amy 2019. In the long term, children who are in families with domestic violence have a higher chance of the effect that I have provided on this slide. The variable. The independent variable would be the children who are affected by the domestic violence in their families with children. My dependent variable would be no domestic violence in families with children and domestic violence in families with children. For this project, I have chosen domestic violence in children. It is such a difficult topic as I have been in the field of early childhood for over 7 years. I have witnessed cases in my field as I have seen in my own family. No child should ever go through situations like these in families, as it certainly affects them in the long run. As I have stated in my PowerPoint, independent variable being children who are affected by domestic violence in their families, and the dependent variable being no domestic violence in families with children and domestic violence in families with children. Example graph bar. I have added an example of a bar graph to demonstrate the percent of the children who have been victims between the father and mother. The graph breaks it down from less than a year old to 17 years of age. The blue bar is a father who shows the domestic violence towards a child. The red bar is a mother who shows the domestic violence towards the child. And lastly, the gray bar is the other who does domestic violence to the child. And domestic violence doesn't necessarily come from home. It can be from school, work, neighbors, people who we don't even know. Statistical test. In one factor MANOVA, there is one independent variable and two or more interval or ratio level dependent variables. In situations where one factor MANOVA is used, a series of sample ANOVAs could be used instead, but to do so would fail to address the importance of the intercorrelation between among and the dependent variables. Some think that the formula one factor MANOVA takes into consideration. For this, I would use one factor MANOVA test. In addition, as there is only one independent variable, there is also two or more dependent variables. In my belief, I feel that this test best fits my independent variable as it gives me better understanding in my hypothesis. In the reading, it mentions that the one factor MANOVA test, there is one independent variable being the child and the dependent variable being no domestic violence in families with children and the domestic violence in families with children. And my reference. Thank you guys, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a good night.